All right, joining us today on Pirate Radio Live, DG David Glenn to talk some hoops as it is time. Man, a lot of fun this weekend watching conference tournaments, and we got more to go. David, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Clip. Always fun to be with y'all.
My first thought of having you on was when two North Carolina teams punched their tickets to the big dance on Sunday, that being High Point and Queens. And I talked to Brian North, WCTI 12 on Friday, set the over under at 5.5 North Carolina teams to make the tournament. At that time, we were thinking Duke, Carolina State, High Point, Wilmington. Wilmington knocked off, but knocked off by a North Carolina team in Campbell. But right now we got two in, David. I'll let you speak on where the Wolfpack are, but let's start with Queens and High Point. High Point, second straight year, second tournament. Queens in it for the first time.
Yeah, it's a great story in both cases because High Point had to go through a coaching change. So they've only been a Division One program for about a quarter century. They finally get to the big dance, and then their head coach, Alan Huss, decided to leave for kind of coach in waiting status at his alma mater, which is Creighton University. Really good program. But that just put High Point up in the air. They promoted the assistant to Alan Huss, Flynn Clayman, and basically the same results unfolded. Panthers win the regular season title in the Big South, and then they go ahead and get that automatic bid, which in those one bid leagues, you got to win your conference tournament or you're going to get left out pretty much no matter what your resume looks like. And Queens is an even more crazy story because they've made the transition from Division II. They started that transition 4 years ago. And because of the NCAA rules about how transitions work when you jump from one level to another, this was the first year that Queens was even eligible to make the NCAA tournament at the Division I level. So obviously they finished third in their league, the Atlantic Sun, which is pretty good, but they had to beat the number one seed, Central Arkansas, in the championship game. They got it done. They have the most efficient offense in the A-Sun, just as High Point has the most efficient offense in the Big South. So obviously, it's an uphill battle to win once you get to the big dance if you're from a one-bid league, but those are two great stories. And just to give you one fun fact about the bigger picture, the most teams our state has ever gotten into the NCAA tournament is 6. So
Wow. Okay.
those two we know are in. You mentioned the 3 ACC schools. We'll talk about the Wolfpack kind of getting into danger zone, but there's a chance we match our all-time greatest number with 6. There's a lot of basketball still to be played.
I didn't realize that when I set that fictitious line. And I think on that line, if you take the over, you're getting plus money and minus maybe the under there. But David, let's UNC Wilmington mentioned them. That's the problem with having such a great regular season. Then it all boils down to, okay, what can you do in 3 or 4 days? So stinks for Siddle and the guys, but they had an awesome year.
They did, and that's painful. That's just the reality of March Madness. They were the best team in the Coastal Athletic Association. They get the number one seed. Every league does it a little bit differently, right? How much do you reward that number one seed?
Right.
There are conferences that put you all the way through to the semifinals, and they let other teams battle it out for 3 or 4 days before you even have to play a game. Heck, for a long time, remember the Ivy League didn't even have a conference tournament.
Yeah.
And if you won the regular season, you got the auto bid. A lot of fans don't realize it's a choice to make your tournament champion the auto bid recipient. You can make your regular season champion the one bid getter, but nobody does it that way because it would take away the allure of the conference tournament format. But who knows what we're going to get in the future. But the Seahawks, Takeo Siddle got a contract extension. It'll be interesting to see if he gets some interest on the coaching carousel, even though he just signed an extension with the Seahawks. But you know how it works in a sport defined by the NCAA tournament. That'll be considered a really good year for the Seahawks. But you just can't call it the best of years when you fall short of your ultimate goal.
I feel like the West Coast Conference, Gonzaga and St. Mary's have been put into the semis for a while now. Who was the one, Jared, we talked about last year with was it Sun Belt, the gauntlet? And now that is becoming more popular. The American is doing it, David, where you get buys into the semis. The ECU women, the 2 seed, all the way in the semifinals. They don't play till Friday night, so we got to wait a long time for basketball. But that's becoming more popular. I don't know if these bigger conferences will do it because they're going to have more at-larges anyway. But I think some of these conferences want to make sure their best teams have the best shot to win, right?
Yeah, because, the reality is there's 31 conferences, I believe, and probably for 20 or so of those, they get only one bid.
Yeah.
So if you finish, heck, in one of the major conferences, you could finish fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th sometimes, and still know you have a pretty good chance of getting in as an at-large. For the majority of college basketball teams, you need to win your league tournament, no matter how great your regular season was, to get into the big dance. Now, if the big dance expands in future years, we're going to revisit all these topics. I mean, at some point, if the NCAA tournament gets big enough, they're going to revisit whether to have conference tournaments at all.
Yeah.
But that's another story for another day. In the meantime, there's only 68 slots, and the overwhelming majority of those go to the top, 6 conferences.
David Glenn joining us. David, Carolina Duke Part 2 went like most expected, I guess. North Carolina hung around for a while, but Duke is steamrolling right now. And personally, I have futures on Arizona, and I always put one on Houston because I want Kelvin Sampson to win one eventually. And I don't know if this is the offense is a little better in Houston this year, but the defense is not as good as it has been. But interested to see what they do. Looking back, I wish I'd have put a future on Duke because they look pretty awesome right now.
Well, here's the twist. If it's easy to forget this because of how well they've been playing lately, but roughly 2 months ago, they played Florida State, middle of the road NIT type team in Tallahassee, gave up, I think it was 87 points, and only beat the Seminoles by 4. Couple other games around the same time, early January. They gave up a ton of points. They still won, obviously, but they were close calls. They were playing single-digit games against middle-of-the-pack ACC teams. Well, obviously, the Devils of right now are a lot better than that. And if you look at their body of work over the last 2 months, obviously the Michigan game was very competitive, but we expected that to happen. They did lose in Chapel Hill. Credit to the Tar Heels for that amazing victory in the last second. But they've become a different version of themselves. They've gone from, one of the 10 best teams in the country to, when at full health, maybe the best team in the country, although I like Arizona as well, to use your example. The twist is we believe that 2 of Duke's 5 starters will not even play at the ACC tournament. Starting point guard Caleb Foster, starting center Patrick Gongba, not expected to play this week. And if you saw what happened with Caleb Foster, man, I don't know if he's coming back, much less when he's coming back. So we'll see. Duke is very notoriously very private about injuries. And if Caleb Foster is out for the season, they don't even want to tell the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee.
Yeah.
Because they don't want it to, impact their seed in any way. But I'm headed to Charlotte, and it's going to be fascinating to see. We all know Duke is by far the best team in the ACC. They just killed Carolina. Prior to that, they killed a really good Virginia team. This opens up the bracket a little bit. And another twist is there's 4 or 5 teams in Charlotte this week. I've been to 39 straight ACC tournaments, Clip. I can promise you there have never been 5 ACC teams near the bubble when a tournament started. There's always been 1, 2, sometimes 3. There are 5 that are either barely on the right side of the bubble or on the wrong side trying to climb the ladder. And that just, now that Duke, John Shire said it himself. I think if John Shire in an imaginary alternative universe could just say, you know what, let somebody else cut down the nets in Charlotte. I need to get healthy. He didn't say that, but he came close to saying it at his press conference where it's like, hey, man, we're going to try hard and we want to win the ACC tournament. But we all know my priority is getting these dudes healthy for the NCAA tournament. So there's a lot of fun storylines as we head to Charlotte.
Yeah, when will we have a team opt out of the conference tournament like they do bowl games? Maybe we'll see that down the road. David Glenn joining us. All right, so David, how about those teams you mentioned? Who needs to win the most out of the group you're talking about?
Well, I think the bubble teams, NC State with just a win is going to stay on the safe side. SMU, I think with a win or two can stay on the safe side. It's the teams that are on the wrong side, which right now is Cal and Stanford and Virginia Tech.
Huh.
So those are three ACC teams that most people are listing among the sort of first four out or next four out, which means, not only do you have to do well, you have to hope there are not a lot of bid stealers in the conference tournaments around the country. So we'll see how that shakes out. But one fun part about the ACC tournament this year is that there are more good teams. I mean, the ACC has been a 4 or 5 bid league for several years in a row now. This year, it's going to be more 7, 8, 9, 10, possibly, if everything went right. And that means even tomorrow, on the first day of the tournament, man, 3 of the best players in the league will be on the court. If you haven't seen Abuka Akori of Stanford, he's incredible. He plays Tuesday. Juke Harris of Wake plays Tuesday. And Boopy Miller of SMU plays Tuesday. I mean, again, I've been to a lot of opening days of the ACC tournament. There is almost never that kind of star power on the court on day one. And heck, those 3 guys I just mentioned are 3 of the 10 best players in the Atlantic Coast Conference. So that makes it more fun. Maybe it'll be less predictable than usual because Duke is injured. Crazy fun fact, in the last 26 ACC tournaments, it is Duke 14, all other schools combined 12.
Man.
It used to be the Coach K Invitational.
Yep.
Now it's John Shire cranking them out.
Well, when you were talking earlier about in a perfect world, if you could kind of punt on this tournament, it reminded me growing up, there was a theory I felt like that Duke really wanted to win the tournament and Dean Smith and North Carolina were more, let's kind of rest and get ready. I don't know if that's because Duke won and that was something North Carolina fans made up as an excuse as to why they lost, but was there something to that in the 90s, David?
That shifted over time. It really ramped up during the Roy Williams era because Roy Williams had a famous quote one time where he called the ACC tournament a glorified cocktail party. Okay. And, we would ask follow questions and Coach Williams would say, look, am I coaching my head off? Yes. Are these guys emptying the effort bucket? Yes. Are we trying to win every game? Are we trying to win every tournament? Yes, we are. It's not like he's, using all the subs to wink, throw the game in the early rounds. But he did say, hey, this sport is defined by the NCAA tournament. John Shire just this week kind of reinforced that theme. But when both Coach K was winning all those ACC tournaments and Roy Williams had his cocktail party comments, that's when it really, really ramped up. But Dean Smith back in the day made a great point. It is a greater accomplishment to show you they're the best in a tournament in a conference over 4 months than it is to show you're the best in the conference over 3 or 4 or 5 days. Logically speaking, Dean Smith was right about that. But there came a point where Carolina would win all these regular season titles and then not win the ACC tournament. And Coach Smith would make jokes about that. Roy Williams made in his different way jokes about that. And that's how this dynamic came about. But it'll be really interesting this week because Duke is the one that, again, 14 out of 26. I mean, you can't dominate much more than that. That's the most dominant stretch in the history of this league. I can tell you that. Yeah. So how does that program with that DNA? It's not like they're going to tell Cameron Boozer, National Player of the Year, to go out there and not try hard. It's not like they're going to play him for 11 minutes a game instead of 30 plus. They're going to try to win. But it's a more even playing field. Virginia's a good team. Miami's a good team. They're on the other side of the bracket. Louisville's a good team. On the Duke side of the bracket, you have the Devils without 2 starters. You have the Tar Heels without Caleb Wilson. And then you have a lot of teams trying to make a mark or get into the NCAA tournament or improve their NCAA tournament seed.
David, a question I asked our guests last week. You'd be great to ask this too after attending all those ACC tournaments. And as you're going for 40 in a row one day or whatever, you show up at the arena and somebody says, Mr. Glenn, I'm sorry, but you made a comment in 2007 we disagree with, and you're not allowed in the building. You're not allowed at the ACC tournament. What other conference tournament, if you had to pick one, would you like to see every game of?
That's a good one. And you mean this year specifically?
Yes, let's go
Yeah.
this year because my answer that I always have every year actually changed this year. So I'd like to hear, yeah, this
Yeah.
year.
I would say the Big 12. I think Arizona is a brilliant team, well coached, great players. Houston is a brilliant team, well coached, great players. BYU has another of the best players in the country, and AJ Devonsa. Good team, but an elite talent in that case. I mean, you got Kansas and Darren Peterson. I mean, holy cow, there's a ton. The current Big 12 reminds me of how I have felt about the ACC for much of my career. I don't feel that way as much right now because Coach K retired, Roy Williams retired, Jim Boeheim retired, Leonard Hamilton retired. I mean, Tony Bennett retired, and on and on. But man, the Big 12, to me, I understand the SEC is going to probably get the most teams in to the NCAA tournament. To me, that's not the best way to determine what's the best conference. To me, it's a top-down phenomenon. Who cares how your bottom tier looks? Who cares how your middle tier looks for the most part? The Big 12 is stacked at the top, and I would pay the price of admission to see their semifinals and final.
My default answer every year is Big East, and yeah, you're seeing some great teams, but it's almost like you're seeing the building. Like I just want to, like there's some magic in the garden, but for this
I'm
year,
with you. I'm with you on that. Growing up in Philadelphia, the Big East was my, superhero, so to speak, before I transplanted to ACC country. So
yeah.
I have a lot in my veins. I could bore you with stories about Lou Carnesecca and Raleigh Massimino and the other Big East teams of my childhood. And I love that building too. So I feel you on that. Just that's why I asked the this year question.
Exactly, because this year my answer is Big 12. I'm with you.
If you asked me broadly, it would have been Big East. If you asked me this year, it'd be Big 12.
We had some folks answer. Intern Zach, he's smart. He said West Coast or Mountain West because it's in Vegas. So pretty good call there too.
That's a different angle. I like that. Look at it a little. I had my son's bachelor party was in Vegas, so that was not crazy long ago. I can appreciate being able to have some fun with your downtime. Love
David, back to the original over-under. So, as I mentioned, the Fighting Camels, our buddy Chris Haymeyer, voice of the Camels, calling some, semifinal action after knocking off UNCW. So, still trying to find that other North Carolina team in. We got a couple options out there. I guess Charlotte, maybe App State. So, could we find another one in there somewhere?
It's going to be tricky because, Campbell would have to work its way through some tough teams. My old friend Lavelle Moten at NC Central, they're not favored this year to win the MEAC, but they're a dangerous and well-coached team. App State is out, unfortunately.
Okay.
They did finish second in their league, but they got bounced in the Sun Belt tournament. So we're running out of good candidates. It's not impossible. Yeah. And 5's a good number. I mean, we've been around in my time knowing you probably. There have been years where the whole state of North Carolina only had 2 teams. I'm trying to remember that year. It was a while ago. So we're typically having 3 or 4. So 5's a good year. 6 is a spectacular year. It happened in 2018 and once prior to that. So if we get if the Wolfpack doesn't continue its slide and stays on the right side of the bubble, then we have our 5. And anything above that, man, that's just icing on the cake.
David, thanks for joining us today, man. I want to reach out to you, get you on next week, break down the bracket with you. But a little bit of an ACC preview, and again, to highlight Queens and High Point for making the tournament. That's a big deal. One day, ECU will be back in there. I hope I'm alive to see it, David, and maybe that'll happen before too long. But DG, awesome stuff. So you'll be in Charlotte this week, I'm sure, with a lot of great content, right?
Yeah, we're going to have live shows for our YouTube channel and our podcast. I'm writing daily articles. I've already written my High Point preview, my Queens preview, my Duke preview, my Carolina preview, my State preview, plus a bunch of other ACC teams. All that's at ncsportsnetwork.com. We've got some coach interviews on the way and a lot of other fun. So March Madness, among my favorite times of the year. Appreciate joining you this week. Happen to join again next week, maybe with some tasty tidbits from my time in Charlotte.
Thank you, DG. See you, man.
Thank you, Clip. Take care, bud.